Hi, Sandra here for Create in Spain. I just love my guillotine. I buy double-sided foam tape stuff in a reel from a local Spanish retailer, and it's really sticky stuff, which is great except for when you want to actually trim it down to a narrow width. So I cheat and I put it on some backing paper, the sort of stuff that you normally get vinyls on, and then I just use my guillotine. I just go don't know how to make life easier. Right, today's card video is going to be rather a long one. I apologise for that, but it's quite an involved card and I do cater for beginners, and if I miss steps out, someone's going to get really confused and probably annoyed with me. So I try and give as much information as I can. Right, the card file will be linked below as usual. So this is the front back of the card. It's one of those times when it's quite good to use a relatively stiff card and one that looks quite pretty on both sides. It's just a nice thing to do. Now you probably can't see it under the camera, but I have a design already imprinted on here. What I did was I made the card design. I set some lines to pink for score lines, and some lines obviously are cut lines. And the score lines, I just put an empty biro into my silver bullet and let it do the scoring with an empty biro. It's much better than putting a blade in because you don't damage the card anywhere near as much. And I can see the things that I need to see. You can't, but I can. Sorry, but there it is. I have the inside of my card cut, and as you can see, it's a pop-up. So this is one of the reasons why it's quite an involved card. Again, the score lines and the cut lines are there. Anyway, the first thing I want to do is to put on my background piece. Now, it isn't scored, but it is cut in all the appropriate places, and it's pretty obvious how it goes on here. Press it down really well. You don't want this coming off once your card is in 3 dimensions. It's just not nice. Pain in the neck to deal with if it comes up afterwards. The crease lines are all there, it's just a case of finding them again. There we go. So once you've found them, you can squash it down nice and flat and reinforce them with whatever tool you like. Now you notice there's a little flap here, and that's important because this is going to light up as well. I did tell you it's going to be a long card, this one. But that is probably one of the most important bits to get done first. Now here I've already started to put my tape around the edge. Now you might think, well okay, if you're going to put something in here, maybe you just want some tape around this part, which is where the light and the battery and all the rest of it is going to be sorted out. But if you don't put it on both sides, the card won't go together properly. Believe me, I know. So I'm just going to put the rest of the tape round, and I'll come back when I've done that, because you don't really want to see me doing that. Okay, I've put the tape around the inside of my card where my lines were, inside the lines. I've also put some foam tape on the back of the back wall of the card. Now make sure when you do that you don't put it on the edges or around here where you've already got some tape on there. So the next thing to do is to actually fit this inside, but I only want to fit it onto the back. So your washi tape is not quite strong enough to stop this from moving. Okay, it's in place. Whether it's right or not, it's in place. It is where it is. The good thing with having a card that's actually larger than this is if you really need to, you can cheat and you can trim this down afterwards if you get it slightly off. Not that I'd ever do that, of course. No chance. Right, okay, I'm going to close the card up and just press it down nicely. This isn't going to be an easy one to put through the post, but I'm thinking to myself, a card like this, you probably want to see someone's face when they open it. So, the next thing to do is to work out all the electronics. Now, a couple of things. I'm not going into how I do most of the wiring exactly because I've gone through that in my previous videos recently. What I will show you is that on this particular instance I've used 2 light bulbs. Now all that means is instead of snipping one off of the string of lights, you snip 2 off and then you join your wires. The other thing I'm going to mention is this stuff. This is going over my joins. I made a version of this card earlier, which is why this is actually being peeled off. And where I did my switch, my wire actually cracked and broke. So I decided it needed a little bit of protection. But I thought that while I was going to do that, it would be a good idea to protect the join in the wires as well. And what I've done is I've taken a bit of this stuff. I don't know what it's called. It's some kind of kid's toy, for lack of other word. You buy these laces and they weave them together. I don't know what they do with them. But they are clear plastic and they have string inside. So what you need to do is to break the plastic open. If you've got someone with some electrical wire cutter things around, that's what you use to do it. If you haven't, you just have to be careful with a craft knife. And then you pull out the thread that's inside it and you end up with just a very transparent plastic sleeve, which is what I've used to go over these wires to protect them. Now I've got here a little character, well, a couple of characters that I've drawn, and I've put little light bulbs behind his car lamps. So when the car is in the card and it's switched on, with luck, those lamps are going to light up. Now I've tested my lamps already, and I can't remember which way round is the positive, which is the negative on this. It's the other way round. And so, ta-da, they light up. Isn't that clever? Oh, look at this. Right, so I now have to work out a way of putting this guy in. Now, a word of caution, I don't intend to put any paper down on this bit. So if you want to put any paper down, what you need to do is to get your lights in first, then put your paper down, and then do the fixing. Now, this is going to be the first guy that I put onto my design, and he is designed to go just here. He's got his little road in front of him and a snowbank, and he's going to be motoring along. This poor little guy here can't see where he's going, and the polar bear is looking out the window to give him guidance. There we go. I can put him there, no problem at all now. Right, so I have my little car and drivers in place, and what I had done without realising it is I had put some tape back here that wasn't actually supposed to be there, basically. And so all I did was I took a little bit of talcum powder on my finger and just rubbed it over the tape, and that stops it from being sticky and therefore sticking to things that it shouldn't stick to. So that bit is done, and if we look under here, if we fold this back, if we look under here, I have one wire which I've actually tinted that bit of plastic pink, so I know that that is the positive side, and then I have the negative side. So now when I touch that to there, it goes on. when you're putting the plastic sleeve on here, if you do decide to do this, try and make sure that your wire isn't bent. And if it doesn't immediately sort of travel up the wire, just twist it a little bit. And you should then be able to get it exactly where you need to get it without putting any pressure on it to put kinks in. And once you've got the end, it's okay, you can literally just pull it on. There we go. So fingers crossed. Let's see if it's still working. Yeah, it still works. This tip here where it bends needs to be protected, because if it isn't, with repeated usage, that's where the break was before when I made this card, and I don't want that to happen again. And this bit here, I need to see where it falls naturally. So yeah, that should, fingers crossed, be fine. Now I'm going to fold it over on top of that cardboard and just put a piece of sticky tape over the top. Now you can decorate this if you wish, so it's no problem. Now the other thing that I need to do is to put in a fastener of some description, and I decided to use a brad. So I'm going to put a double layer of foam here and just press into that. Much better than getting a sharp tool through your fingertip, believe me. And pop my brad through, and as you can see, that will actually close things up. So the other thing that I want to do is to put a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit of foam tape underneath this wire. Now I don't want to take off both sides of the protection, I don't want to take off one side, I want to slide it as well I can, and it would help if I just pop that up. Or maybe, even better, undo my sticky tape. That's probably the best bet. Okay, undo my sticky tape. So I want to put a piece of foam underneath there to help it to contact when it's lowered. So put my piece of sticky tape back in place. Now at the moment it won't do anything because there is nothing there for it to contact. I'm going to open up my brad. She says hopefully. There we go. And turn it like that. And literally I will just pop that over there to seal it shut. Now this is slightly raised, so when that goes in contact with the wire, which will be there because it's been marked off where it's going to go, that will make contact and complete the circuit. So I need to have some wire between there and where it is. Now I can't see in this light without getting my head underneath, so I'll put that in place and come back in a moment. Right, I've put my wire in place. If all is well, when that gets closed, that goes down, that will turn the lights on. That's the idea. Now the only thing left for me to do is to tape down my battery really, really well. So now is the time, if you're going to use any paper on here, now is the time to actually use it and to cover that area up. Right, I was having an issue where my lamps wouldn't stay on, and I discovered actually I had a broken brad, so it wasn't putting the pressure onto the switch in order to keep the lamps on. So we now have a working brad, even though I had to destroy part of the card in order to get it out. Right, so I've got part of my card done, but it's not complete. I've got a whole load of other characters and things to put on. So the first thing I'm going to put on is a little snowbank with a snowman and a lamp. And if you look closely, he's holding a little gingerbread snowman, and he's got a mug of cocoa in his hand, and he's got a little candy cane in his hat. So now I need to put some double-sided tape on the back of this little fella. And just trim the tape off a little bit. I call him Bertie the Basset Hound. And he's been shopping, and he's got his tree, and he's got a lot of presents, and he's getting into the Christmas spirit. So and there he goes. He's in grave danger of being run over. And then I need to put some glue on the back here of my trees. My trees, and go on this back piece here that you can't easily see from the front, but it's just a little finishing touch. And then in the front here I'm going to add a sentiment, and then I will be able to decorate the front of the card. Right, if you want a different way of making the circuit stay closed without the hassle of a brad, there is an alternative. What you need is a strip of card, and put a piece of foam tape to the centre, fold it in half and put a piece of foam tape to the centre. Now you can put some glue along that line there and put a bobby pin in and fold it back up. And what you need to get is basically that. If I can show you there. So that you can decorate this any way you like. You could put a sentiment on it, you could put some other kind of embellishment of it, the choice is yours. But then when you slide this, and bearing in mind it would be glued, when you slide this on top of here, it now puts your lights on. And so someone can actually just remove that if they want to switch it off, and put that in place when they want to switch it on again. That is another alternative. Another way of doing it is to have a piece of acetate or whatever in there, so that when it's in the post, it can be posted without the contacts being on. And then to have a piece of tape that comes from here and keeps it closed, and then that will be permanently on unless someone could peel the tape up. And another way of doing it is to use a magnetic tape. I haven't got any at the moment, but normally I have some sheet magnet. And if you were to put a piece of sheet magnet, just a little bit, underneath the wire which is on the base, and underneath, instead of the foam piece, underneath the wire on here, again in the post you would put something in between it, but then when someone received the card they would take it away, and the magnet would complete the circuits by forcing the wires together. So those are a couple of options. As I said, at the moment I don't have any magnets, so I couldn't do that. But it's very easy stuff to cut, and as long as you can find magnetic tape or sheet that actually is magnetic, because some of it is better than others, that would work really well. So there we have it, a few different options for the closing of the circuit. Hope you've enjoyed this card and that you download the file which is linked below, and that you enjoy making it and giving. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.